Think you know everything about Henry VIII and his 6 wives? Believe the secrets of the Tudor court are all about queens and princesses? Think again? Step into the shadows where I exist? Candlelight flickers on cold stone walls? I'm a nobody. Listening to the distant bells of the Tower of London chime like a countdown to my fate, while feasts and crowns dazzle above, I'm a silent ghost in the underbelly of this grand palesa living plaything, cherished at night, forgotten by day. What do they call me? Not a noble, not a servant. I'm a secret, a male consort, eh? Stain on history no scholar dares to fully reveal. You won't believe what lies beneath these polished floors. If you're brave enough, stay and hear the truth. History hides about the darker side of the throne. Have I ever loved? In this place, love is a crime, not murder or treason, but a sin crushed under the weight of power, leaving only blood on the palace's cold stones. I remember golden afternoons at Hampton Court, music echoing from the great hall where courtiers danced. Above it all loomed Henry VIII, his shadow swallowing every corner, a god both merciful and ruthless. He loved, he hated, he destroyed, all to secure his throne for another day. I was part of that machine. Everyone had a role. Nobles schemed, queens trembled, guards stood silent. But what about us, the ones chosen to serve in the dark? We existed in a gray space, neither kings nor slaves. Just beautiful shadows kept alive by silence. Each morning, sunlight streamed through the chapel's stained glass windows. I saw women in dazzling gowns, knights in gleaming armor. I wore thin silk, a silver chain around my neck, my hair styled to please him. I was called a servant, but in the dark, I was something else, a living weapon. No one chose us. We were born, raised, and shaped by a cold nod from someone above. The Tudor era was a world of iron control and constant fear. The king was the center of the universe, every emotion bent to serve his power. Henry VIII created his own church just to Marianne later execute in Boulogne. When she was accused of adultery and treason, the men around her, musicians, young guards, advisors, were questioned, imprisoned, even killed. Just for being too close to her court records, hint at names erased or barely mentioned. Young, page, singer, prince's friend. These men weren't just companions, they were suspected lovers, a threat to the throne's honor. Whispers also swirled around Edward VI, Henry's son, and the handsome young men always at his side, from the classroom to the bedroom. In that world, love only existed if it strengthened power. I grew up in Sussex, where fog blanketed the fields and wildflowers bloomed by the streams. My mother warned me, beware of men on white horses with promises of the city. I never imagined they'd come for me with a letter from the palace and enough coin to clear my father's debts. I thought I'd been chosen to learn music or sing. I was wrong. They studied my face, tested my voice, made me dance, then sit still for hours, never crying, never asking about home. You're beautiful, you're obedient, we'll go far, they said. They didn't say far meant losing my freedom, my family, myself. On my first day at court, they cut my hair, dressed me in fine robes, and gave me a noble name, unconnected to my past. They taught me to bow, walk softly, smile on cue, but never ask why I was there. Everything I was, my name, my body, my voice, now belonged to someone else. In the mirror, I saw a stranger. Someone else painted a false smile on my face, drained the spark from my eyes. They called me a gift for His Majesty, but I was never a gift to myself. In the 16th century, the Tudor court had a system for recruiting young boys from the English countryside. Boys with striking looks, clear voices, or graceful moves were brought to the capital, asked, supposedly to train as pages, singers, or performers. But many became private entertainment for nobles, or even the king and his son, Edward VI, surviving. Records, though often censored, mentioned pages or singers who served in secret, sworn to silence about what they saw or endured. Renaming, redressing, and cutting ties with family were standard. Letters from the time, preserved in the British Library, reference male attendants who could never speak of their duties. Modern studies of Edward VI, close companions like Barnaby Fitzpatrick or Thomas Seymour, note their constant presence, sparking rumors of scandal among nobles. Official histories blur these details, but private journals and foreign diplomats' reports from France and Spain hint at special attendants or favored men, always near the king or prince. Even at night, the question haunts me. If I'm no longer loved, what's left of me? A hollow memory, shadow lost in a maze of laughter that isn't mine? The banquets at Hampton Court were dazzling, shimmering, and utterly fake. Every face wore a mask, some of velvet, others of fear. I was summoned to the preparation room where the brocaded boys chatted and laughed, their eyes darting. Nervously, the steward inspected every fold of our clothing, reminding us to smile on cue and say nothing out of turn. I can't recall my real name anymore. Tonight I'm just a performer, playing a role with my soul signed away to someone else. The doors opened. I stepped into the hall, bathed in candlelight, surrounded by glittering faces and silver goblets brimming with wine. Laughter pierced the air, stripping away any sense of privacy. The old king watched me, warm yet distant. Maybe he was as lonely as I was, but his loneliness wore a crown. Mine wore only flesh. The music swelled, and I was called back. Powerful noble's gaze locked onto me. No one asked what I wanted, as if my existence was only to soothe the boredom of the elite. Every laugh felt like a small knife in my heart. I smiled back, a puppet trained to obey. I knew tonight I'd belong to someone I couldn't refuse. In this game, resistance was pointless. In the private chamber's darkness, silk fell away. Masks dropped. All that remained were numb bodies, sometimes stained with silent tears or heavy sighs. No one knew our hidden pain. We didn't cry tears. We're a luxury reserved for power, not shame. I often wondered, if I vanished tomorrow, would anyone who whispered they loved me remember? Or was I just another shadow passed through the hands of royalty? Tudor banquets weren't just social events, they were stages for beauty and power. Records show that besides noble women, young men were brought to court as entertainers, to please guests or the king himself. Under James I, who followed the Tudors, George Villiers, Duke of Buckingham, became the ultimate male favorite. Young, charming, and so favored, he was called the Shadow King. Letters court expenses, and whispers suggest Villiers wasn't just a political ally, but a deeply personal one, fueling rumors of a male concubine role. Henry VIII, two favored young male attendants, some tied to court scandals. These banquets listed boy entertainers with hefty expenses, but their true names were rarely recorded, while history fixates on jealous queens and rival mistresses. We male consorts faced a different kind of story, one tinged with a unique poison in the shadows. This jealousy crept like fog along the Thames. A single glance from the king could turn allies into enemies. I once thought only women knew envy, but I was wrong. The king's favored boys wielded smiles and subtle words as weapons, spreading rumors or scheming to wound each other. One day, the king spoke my name at a feast. The next, I heard whispers of my improper ties to a widowed noblewoman. Once, I was even accused of witchcraft merely for soothing the king's mood with a song at banquets. I saw false smiles from those I once called friends. Their sharp glances and murmurs to eunuchs or ladies-in-waiting could destroy a male consort's life with a single rumor, sending us from favor to prisoner, the chopping block. I heard of Thomas Culpepper's execution. The court buzzed that he was Catherine Howard's lover, Henry's fifth wife. But someone whispered to me, was Culpepper only drawn to women? Did the king not notice him first? What was the truth? I don't know. I only know that men like me living on royal favor, balanced on a knife's edge between love, power, and death. I can't count how many times I stood before a mirror, forcing a smile while my heart shattered, terrified I'd be the next name erased from the records. If you had to choose between being loved and staying alive, what would you pick? For me, sometimes they felt the same, and both were illusions, historical. Records confirmed that rivalry wasn't just among female consorts but simmered among male favorites too. Thomas Culpeper, a handsome and talented courtier, was executed in 1541 for alleged adultery with Catherine Howard. Yet modern scholars question if his closeness to Henry VIII sparked other rumors, complicating the scandal. Tudor courtiers who fell from favor were often accused of witchcraft or corrupting the king, especially if they were defavored. Many young male attendants faced baseless charges, imprisonment, or execution. The blurred lines of power. Affection and favor were taboo topics in English courts from Tudor to Stuart times. Often buried in lost diaries or anonymous letters sent abroad, cold wind cuts through the small graveyard at the village's edge. My fingers trace a mossy, nameless stone.
Ow.
My life once draped in silk and glory has shrunk to a crumbling room in a quiet market town. My days in the Tudor court feel like a dream or a nightmare, both distant and vivid. I can still smell the pine resin on the palace floors, hear the king's footsteps in the great hall, and feel the echo of laughter and music ringing in my ears. I once believed escaping the palace would mean freedom, but life isn't as vast as I dreamed. Some like me turned to monasteries, hoping a monk's robe could hide old scars and haunting memories. Others became wandering minstrels, strumming lutes on London streets, living off strangers' pity, each coin a bribe to silence the past. I know some who served aging nobles, living quietly, dodging every glance, just praying for a peaceful old age. I still fear my past catching up. A familiar look or a whispered rumor could force me to flee the city overnight. These nameless, wordless fears gnaw at me. I live quietly, befriending the silent figures on the streets, feeling the sun's warmth through thick clouds, and realizing true freedom isn't about being a king, it's about being allowed to forget who you were. The fates of Tudor male consorts and close attendants are often shrouded in shadow. No official records track them, but mentions of choir boys, pages, or chamber servants suggest some became monks in small abbeys after falling from favor or when a king or queen died. Others turned to street performance singers, dancers, musicians playing in traveling troupes or suburban taverns. Like those inspiring Shakespeare's plays, drawn from the underbelly of society. Their lives were rarely documented unless tied to scandals or executions. Those who survived lived under new names, new trades, avoiding court connections to escape political purges or exposure in a rigid society. Some days, I sit by a narrow window, hearing a harp's faint notes from a distant tavern, memories flooding back like soft rain. I recall the painter Hans Holbein's eyes as he crafted portraits of Tudor royalty. He signed his name only for those allowed to exist. But what about us? Who were the silent figures holding lutes, standing in the background of those grand portraits? If Tudor art was so glorious, who painted the shadows behind its brilliance? I once played music for the king on a moonless night as he sat alone by the fire, listening to the strings' vibrations. Only I knew that beneath his grand robe was a man as afraid as I was, afraid of losing his throne, of being forgotten, of himself. How many songs, paintings, or plays were born from the hands and voices of those no one dared name? Many nights of silent creation, emotions pressed into notes or brushstrokes, just for a fleeting nod from a master. History remembers only the victors, with the shadows who made others shine, have no names in its pages. Tudor art, from paintings to music to theater, thrived in the 16th century, tied to names like Holbein and Shakespeare. But behind those works stood countless others, singers, musicians, nude models, pages, and male servants. Many of Holbein's portraits feature unnamed background figures. Court music relied on boy musicians, many of whom died young, or faded into obscurity, unrecorded. Royal plays, staged by wandering performers or court-trained youths, left no trace of their actors after they fell from favor, as if they never existed. These lives were the shadows that fed Tudor Gloria. Legacy no one wants to recall, but essential to its eternal shine now. I sit here, an old soul in a world that doesn't see me. I no longer crave a name on a gravestone, only hope someone dares to read the unwritten pages of history, to hear the music played in darkness. To know that beneath the glow of power, lives were quietly sacrificed. If you're listening, I ask, you, as I ask myself through countless lonely nights in that cold palace, are you brave enough to open the history no one teaches? To see it through the eyes of those not allowed to exist? Will you pass me by like a shadow in the morning mist, leaving behind what was truest because it's too sad to keep? What would you choose? To live in the light but lose yourself? To be a shadow, clinging to the last shred of who you are? I have no answer. But I hope one day someone will tell the story of those no one dared to name. Today, modern historians are unearthing the dark parts of Tudor history, sifting through letters, portraits, and diaries for traces of the forgotten. Museums like the National Portrait Gallery and the British Library display once synonymous works, inviting reflection on the nameless who shaped a civilization. Projects like Hidden Histories decode records of boy musicians, pages, and male favorites, offering a more human view of the past. If you could choose, would you live as a king on a throne or as one hidden in the shadows? Would you dare tell the story of someone like me? Share your thoughts below, because history belongs to us all, the forgotten.